Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, we're going to take a look at Paysafe today, ticker symbol PSFE. Paysafe pretty handily won the polls that I put out both on YouTube and on Twitter. Blew it away on YouTube, was a little bit closer on Twitter, but not that much. So here's the Paysafe video for the day. Now, if you haven't seen my other Paysafe videos, I was in Paysafe running the wheel on it when it was SPAC BFT, I think. And I was running the wheel, and then eventually I said, okay, this is enough of this. I'm going to kind of put the capital elsewhere. But obviously there were some ups and downs in that period. You see it obviously coming down from 1957 here in January to today sitting at 763. So a sad state of affairs for sure. But there has been sort of this period of, maybe slight hope that a reversal is coming. And so I wanted to come in and take a look. And I know that folks are often quite interested in Paysafe. So what I wanted to do first is take a look at the indicators before we muddy up the chart. And then we'll go in and we'll look at any trends and any support and resistance zones, aka supply and demand. And then we'll quickly head over and take a look at the data on Ortex and call it a video. So let's kick things off with indicators. So indicator 1 is just the volume here. So you see the volume down here. Now a lot of red volume, as you would imagine, and some huge red volume on these gap down is several gap downs, right? So many gap downs. And but you do see in recent days, at least, say since about October 6th, the green days are sort of starting to pick up. Comparatively speaking, I know it still is in a kind of a rough state, but I would look for, it needs the volume. It needs obviously specifically the buy volume, but it just needs volume, period. And then on the MACD side of things, we had a bullish crossover that gave us this little lift off of 690, but it's struggling a bit now, and it looks like it wants to come down on a bearish crossover down here. But we'll see. It always could sort of head fake, like you see over here. It looked like it was going to cross over there, and then it was like, let me push a little bit further. I mean, it's in an overall downtrend, so that didn't lead to anything grand, obviously, but if it's going to reverse, at some point, one of these will have to lead to something grand. So I would look to see if that crosses over or if it just kind of head fakes. The RSI is in a super critical zone at the moment. Now you see the mid-range is always what I harp on with the RSI, because to me, that's more interesting than whether or not something is overbought or oversold, because, and I've said this a lot recently, so apologies if you've heard it, but folks all the time buy something because it's oversold, and they think that means that the buying pressure is just a given, that it's going to pick up and it's just sort of a given. And all the time people buy in because it's oversold and then it goes lower. Similarly, on the sort of exciting side of things, all the time people buy stocks that are considered overbought and are riding very high. But there's that saying out there, buy high, sell higher. And so there's a lot of folks who want to buy into strength, buy into upticks and ride that wave. And a lot of times that on the RSI looks like overbought. So I pay most attention to the 50. And here's why. For example, so here you see this was overbought and then came down and tested the mid-range, which is here, and kind of bounced up and started to struggle with it. And then it came down and started to sell off. But after that, it came and tried to retest the mid-range again, right? Right here, it was sitting again in the 50 range, and it shoved back down. And every time that it's tried to come up since then, and it gets into that 50 range, it's struggled to make any movement through there. And that's really what's kept the price down. It can't get any momentum toward that overbought range, which would obviously be a reaction to the price running up, because it keeps rejecting off of this mid-range and struggling around it. You see it was trying to get some sort of motion here on this recent uptick, but now it's fallen back below the mid-range, and it looks like it may want to come up and kind of test it again. So certainly if it rejects off of it again, I would expect it to go lower, and obviously that would react to the price, but maybe it's able to come back through and kind of get some support over the midline on the RSI, much like you would look for it to do on a support zone on a chart, and be able to get some movement off of that. But I would watch that mid-range very, very closely. Now, it does have a bit of support here on the 20 MA. And is trying to build off of that support today. Now it's sandwiched between the 20 and the 50. Obviously there was a failed attempt here at the 50, but if we get another attempt at the 50, it might sort of see some of that selling pressure die off and give us the opportunity for a bullish crossover between the 20 and the 50 as well, and the price action then having the additional support of the 50. That would be the best case scenario. If it loses the support of this 20, then that could be a strong signal that's it hasn't found a floor yet somehow. Maybe rather unbelievably to a lot of folks. And because we've been looking at them lately, take a look at the Ikimoshu clouds here. I'm still not sure if I said that correctly, but anyway, obviously we're in a long-term downtrend here, but this golden conversion line crossing over this yellow baseline recently is considered a weak buy signal. Weak because the price action is underneath the clouds, aka it's in an overall downtrend. It would be a strong buy signal if the price was above the clouds and it had that crossover, but certainly better than it throwing another sell signal like it would have here, for example. Like, see, they kind of were kissing, I like to say, and then they started to move away, and so this would have been an additional sell signal here, and obviously if you had taken that sell signal, that would have been to your benefits. I'm trying to look and see if there was any decent, I mean, this was sort of like certainly a head fake of a buy signal, even though you do see it sort of came up a little bit there, but definitely been, yeah, just under this like dark cloud, not to make bad puns, but we'll see. This is a really sharp turn, so we'll see if that sharp uptick on the conversion line actually holds and means anything. I'm realizing that there was this big gap down yesterday, and it does look to me that Paysafe has a strong history of filling gaps, though recently it's been leaving them. So like this one happened on August 16th, so that was over 2 months ago, and still hasn't filled that one. But now it also has one here, and would be interested to see if it could fill that. Maybe it can then start to get some upward swing, and maybe that could influence it coming back up to fill this gap still. I mean, it's a long time after the fact, so I get kind of skeptical of those things if you just give them forever to fill a gap. But anyway, this gap here that filled, gap here that filled, gap here that filled. Not really a gap there. It's just like weird wick action. But, several gaps throughout this price movement, and they've been filled pretty consistently. So even a gap here that was filled. So that's what I would look for in the beginning. And I actually hadn't checked to see if there was news on that. Cuts the price target to $9 from $12. Yeah, Credit Suisse. That'll do it. Neutral from outperform, yeah. So that'll definitely put a hurting on it for sure. But to the extent to which, that has any longevity to it, it's sort of to be seen. But that's what I see for the indicators. And now if we continue on with the trend charting, I mean, here's the best case scenario. And I don't know that this is going to hold yet. Here's the best case scenario for the bulls is that so there's like the initiating point of this upward support line. And then a confirmation here. But the problem with that is that's a brand new confirmation. And so whether or not that's actually going to hold, I don't know. But if it does, this would obviously walk it back into that, through that gap and into uptick territory. And then the other thing that I would look for is here is a very strong zone. You see resistance, resistance, support that flipped to resistance, and support here, resistance that flipped to support here. So very, very strong zone. I don't know if it has, no, further back doesn't do us any good. But if it ascending triangles out of this area, that's where we could see a pretty big lift in the price action. So I'd be looking at that pretty strongly. Also 886, these are pretty tight in, unfortunately. I would dot this a little bit because it's not that strong of a zone, but it's sort of there. So it's maybe like a little bit of a friction point. And then here for sure, the start of the gap, as well as previous topping outs and previous resistance zone there. And then we'll give ourselves one more to the upside in case we don't revisit Paysafe for a while. That would be my next area, 1078. So there's definitely some run room if it can get through that like 886 sticky zone. Now, first best place for it to catch support is right about where it is right now, because you see support here, this resistance to flip to support here, and then also this support here, and resistance in this area as well. And the extent to which there's a bit of a gap here, maybe it'll come down to fill that, which would drag it down to about 739, 740, something like that. But you never know sort of what that sets in motion and if it drags the stock down further because of it. The next sort of pivot point would be right around here, 712. So those are support areas that I look for, 712, 748. Upward support line would be the best case scenario, and then flat topping out or ascending triangling out at that 829 level could give a nice lift. And if it can get through that 886, then it should have some clear sailing to test sort of the mid-ish $9 range. So that's what I see on the chart. Now, if we flip over to the data, here's what Ortex has for us. Obviously, a losing month so far. Maybe they're reconfiguring the return potential because of the reduction by Credit Suisse. But if they put it at 9, I mean, that's still percentage-wise a decent return. Not that they would necessarily be correct, but on the short interest side of things, utilization a bit over 50, but still plenty of opportunity to borrow if shorts want to come in heavier. Cost to borrow is pretty negligible, so that's probably not going to dissuade a lot of short sellers from coming in. Days to cover, I don't know if that's upticking or not. It's in the green. It was much higher back here for sure, over 4 days. So, not nothing, but not sort of super pressury yet. But I would keep an eye on the days to cover if they start hanging on to those shares much longer. Current short interest as a percentage of the free float per Ortex estimates, 7.16%. So putting on sort of a minimal stress to the stock price at the moment, distorted selling pressure, but I would certainly keep an eye on it to see if that does get up over 10%, if it's sort of shorts coming in thinking maybe they can sort of finish off the job, who knows. But certainly there's been so much selling pressure here basically all year, or for much of the year, that I wouldn't put it past them for sure. All right, folks. Well, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start and that you're able to finish it off strong in the days ahead. And I appreciate you watching. I will see you in the next video.